I'm here. Jonathan Binskowski, 301 Pewatin Avenue. Yeah, we'd actually like to request a deferral because I think there's a little bit of confusion in what we're requesting. We're actually requesting one laneway suite. So I'd like to request a deferral as we will be eliminating variance number 1. As you can see from the materials submitted, there is no objection from planning. That is based upon what I thought was an understanding that we were going with one unit. Those plans were submitted but not uploaded. So I'd like to request a deferral as we will be only proposing one laneway suite, not 3.
Hi, can you hear me? Thank you. My name is Kyle Lane, and I live at 41 Cody Avenue, which is directly west of the subject property on the opposite side of the laneway. Yeah, that was one of the items I was objecting to. So that would be a positive change. I also had some objections to some of the other variances requested as well. So I'm not sure if it would make sense to speak to that now or to hold it for a future hearing. Okay. No, I would not object to a deferral then.
Hi there, I'm Georgia Curtis. My address is 47 Cody Avenue. And similar to Kyle, there were several variances that I objected to. Right. Okay, well, I guess let's look forward to those changes, and I support a deferral.
Can I read in? Can I make a comment, please? I think we grant them the deferral. We can make a conditions also that they're going to consult or have more consultation with the neighbors or residents also.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, on March 5th, 2020, I'm actually looking at the email now that was set in saying, please find revised zoning notice and plans attached. Please schedule us for the next available date. So I think the confusion with the notice that went out, and now it kind of makes sense why the owners had some questions. The existing dwelling has 3 units at the front. So now I understand where the confusion was adding the 3 laneway suites to the 1. So it's essentially, the proposal is to add 1 laneway suite where there are 3 in the existing fronting building onto homes that are legal. So this was sent in March to the caseworker requesting to be scheduled. And I've actually just messaged the caseworker trying to find out what happened. Jacob. Through you, Mr. Chair, I think, Anita, that was some of the confusion the owner had, where now that I really read it, I believed it was just to add the 1 unit to the 3 that were existing. And I'm actually, yeah, I'm just forwarding you off that email I sent back in March right now.
I have a question. So my question is that the only variance that is affected, variance number 1, or are there other variances that are affected as well?
We had spoken with planning about altering some of the rear yard landscaping. This really is an oddity in the city, this building this size. This is an existing dwelling that it has been used as a shop for ages. So in terms of the variances really are all as per the existing building that's there today. There would be some changes to some landscaping, correct?
I'll put forward a motion for deferral. Yes.
I like sorry, my question is about the deferral fee. Is it like because the city has distributed the wrong information? Oh no. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I second that. Yeah. With the deferral fee. Yeah. With the deferral fee.
Good afternoon, committee members. Are you hearing me okay? Wonderful. Okay. So this is an application to establish a, I'm sorry? Oh, yes, it's Brian with an I, Parker. I am a registered planner with the firm Gowlings, and I'm here on behalf of the owner applicant in this matter. Okay, great. Now, am I able to speak to these this material, or would Bram like to take it? Okay, well, this is a copy of the site plan, and essentially the proposal is to develop a rear freestanding, essentially a garage, a very modest rear building, 2 levels, 2 parking spaces at grade, and then a accessory office suite on the 2nd level of this detached rear building, to be associated with a resident, accessory to the residential dwelling that already exists on the property, fronting College Street. And this is a picture of this is a shot of the rear elevation of the intended rear structure that's going to be accessed from a rear lane. And when the planning division, and I just want to make it clear to the committee that the property is at 901 College. It's located obviously along an avenue, and the zoning of the property is mixed use, CR, which allows freestanding, it allows a mix of residential or commercial uses or standalone buildings for either or. So you can either develop these uses singularly or mixed. And in this case, we're developing the commercial, it's an accessory office to the residential. We're developing it singularly in this rear building together with associated parking at grade. The parking at grade in this detached building is for the purposes of the existing residents. There are 3 rental dwellings that are in the front building, the front dwelling that fronts College Street. So it's essentially a rear building to supply residential parking at grade and 1 office suite, accessory office suite above. And an office use is a permitted use in a CR zone, either as a principal use or an accessory use. And in this case, it's proposed to be an accessory use. And we have, and so initially when we approached the planning, the staff had some issue that, well, we don't like commercial uses to be accessed off a rear lane. And so the rest of these pictures just show you in the vicinity existing uses that do have their rear, their access located off a rear lane. And there is a substantial number of slides here, about 6 or 7, of uses of non-residential uses in the vicinity that access off a rear lane. But in the end analysis, the planning department, I've read the planning department's position. They are satisfied. They make the clear statement that planning staff do not object to the construction of a new 2-story rear detached dwelling containing an office space on the 2nd floor. However, in order to respect and reinforce the policies of the OP, staff recommend residential uses not be permitted in the rear detached garage. And we're fully supportive of a condition to ensure that this rear building with access off this mixed-use lane will not be occupied for residential purposes. We're satisfied with that condition. But my main purpose, one of my main purposes today, is to ensure that the condition is worded correctly. And if the committee would be able to turn its attention to the staff report itself, the planning staff report itself, and I'll give the committee a moment. Under on the first page, under the heading recommendations, it says, should the committee decide to approve the application, planning staff recommend the following conditions. And it says the rear detached garage cannot be used for habitable space or residential use. And we're clearly fine with a condition that restricts the occupancy of that rear detached building for residential use. But because, yes, I would ask the committee to approve the application and to amend the condition such that the condition removes the wording habitable space. The planning staff are certainly on board that this rear building with an office, an accessory office suite above is fine. So I can't see how they can approve that, but yet want a restriction that the building can't be used for habitable space. I don't know how you occupy a second floor office without habitating it. So I'm simply asking the committee to delete the words habitable space or. And in all other respects, an ancillary building, sir? Yes, and well, I would like to certainly reiterate, sir, that the intended use is a permitted use of the property, whether it's whether it's an accessory office or a principal office. In this case, it's an accessory office to the residential use on the property, and it's accessed off a rear existing laneway. The ground floor of this space will be occupied by 2 parking spaces that serve the existing residential dwelling on the property. The balance of the space above will be an accessory office suite. And the planning staff are satisfied. They don't object to the construction of this containing an office space on the second floor. They just don't want it to be. Yes, it is. Well, sir, all I can add is that the use is a CR zoning that allows a principal residential use, and it allows accessory uses to that principal residential use. That's a standard permission in the city's zoning bylaw, accessory related to the principal use. So the property is afforded accessory use permission in that respect, part and parcel of the residential that's permitted. But it's also permitted, because of the mixed use zoning, it's also permitted office as a principal use. So either way, office, whether it's accessory to the residential or principal is a permitted use of the property. So I would leave it at that, sir. And all I would add is that clearly planning staff have no objection to this proposed building, only that it not be, and if I might just add, sir, just as a bit of context, if we were located on the south side of the lane, as opposed to the north side of the lane, the south side of this lane is currently, there's a rhythm of garages, and all the dwellings on the south side of the lane, they fall under a neighborhood land use designation, not a mixed use designation. And all those garages over time are going to be redeveloped for laneway suites, which is a permitted use. And that's why I showed the second slide in the context of, is it in keeping with the is it compatible with the area? I showed the second slide to demonstrate how our rear-facing building has essentially, a residential feel and look to it. Okay. Yes, sir.
Oh, I just want to to make a comment, Mr. Chairman. I think you're right. The property for commercial use is allowed, but did not say that auxiliary building is can have an office, and that's why they have variance number 1. They're asking for it. The variance number 1 will give them the use as office of their auxiliary building. Okay.
No, are we in committee? I would, I'm sympathetic to the argument. It's a commercial avenue. It's an area where we do have a lot of mixed use. I'm supportive of this application, but as the Deputy Secretary Treasurer just mentioned, we have used habitable quite regularly at this committee, and I think it's generally understood what it means. And I don't agree with the applicant's request to remove that from planning staff's condition. So I would move approval of this proposal with the condition as outlined in the planning report.
I'll second it. I agree with argument.
Can I just make a comment? I did understand this question about habitable and residential, and the Secretary General suggested that the wording be habitable residential use. So rather than go with the planning department's term of habitable space or residential use, I would suggest to combine the two so it's clear: habitable residential use. Because I looked up habitable as well to see where is it defined, and I couldn't find a definition. And when I looked under different dictionaries, they weren't specific to indicate that it related specifically to sleeping. It could be for using the space. And so I would suggest to combine it to be worded as habitable residential use. So it's that habitable is tied to the residential use.
That's good idea.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm more leaning towards the conventional definition, but I'm fine with linking it as Nimrod suggested.
Yes, I will still second it. Yeah.
Hello. Yes, I'm here. This is David Riley. Can you hear me? Hi. Yes. Sorry, I'm speaking on behalf of Mr. Hippolito. My name is David Riley from SGL Planning and Design, 1547 Bloor Street West. And today I am going to be requesting a deferral as we received a new zoning notice just this morning that adds a required variance. So we'll need to have this matter addressed on a new public hearing notice and recirculated. And just for your reference, the new variance is not related to any changes to the drawings. It's simply something that was missed by the previous zoning notice, which is based on the exact same placement and footprint of the building. So the proposal remains the same, but we do need to request a deferral to add this variance.
Okay, can you hear me? It's Enzo Lacasano, 514 Delaware Avenue North. I did. I disagree with Mr. Riley as to the intent that the examiner missed the variance. The examiner did not miss it. The applicant purposely submitted an application to show an existing two-story garage, which it is not the case. This garage was an existing one-story. There's been a order to comply since 2014. So there. No, I'm in favor of the deferral.
So I'll make a motion for deferral with a deferral fee. the fees, yeah, they have to pay for that. With
I am here. Yeah, I'm James Pfeffer of 3 Bridgman Avenue, Toronto, Ontario. So I think the first thing we'd like to, I guess, get on the table, in the TRCA report, the TRCA actually requested a deferral. I guess there was some confusion. Both ourselves and the zoning examiner thought that the long-term stable top of slope issues had been dealt with. And then the TRCA has been circulated on this file for a long time, but they recently came back with this report saying that they weren't satisfied with the location of the long-term stable top of slope. So that's something that might impact the variances in front of the committee. So I'm afraid we have to take a step back and resolve this, which we should be able to do very shortly with the TRCA. But I think we'd like to accept TRCA's requests for a deferral. Is this the, Mr. Pritchard actually wrote a very nice letter of support for it.
This is Rob Pritchard here, Chairman. My name is Robert Pritchard and I live at 173 Lyndhurst Avenue. Yes, and I don't object to that. I did want to record, though, that I submitted a second letter. You're showing the first. I submitted a second letter that the clerk said could not be included in the file because I sent it only on Monday after I had met with the neighbor. So there will be, when this comes back, there'll be a letter from me supporting the application, but with comments on 2 important conditions. But I don't object to the deferral.
I'll move a motion of to defer the application, and the applicant is would be subject to the deferral fee.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of committee. Can you hear me?
Yes.
For sure. It's David Smith. Address is 401 Craven Road, Toronto. Okay, I'm going to read from a presentation because I have a number of points to cover. Please let me know if I cut out during the presentation. There are three fundamental points I wanted to make with the time I have. The first is with regards to the nature of the proposal. To echo what I stated in my submitted response, I think it is very important to understand that the proposal before you intends to maintain the existing structure in its entirety. What has stood for over 60 years and what all of the surrounding neighbors have looked at will not change, save for the fact that it will be reclad and cleaned up to be more attractive. This was an intentional measure to minimize any potential impact that converting this structure into a dwelling might have on the surrounding neighbors. Our hopes were that looking at the same building, only perhaps a little nicer, would not be a huge inconvenience on the surrounding neighbors that had already grown accustomed to having this building in their visual space. It is worth noting that the conversion of this structure into a dwelling unit would be very much in keeping with the single-story cottage-style bungalows in the neighborhood, and one that would satisfy access by emergency vehicles, exceed parking requirements, and increase soft landscaping by 14 square meters. It is also worth noting that to the north side of the structure is the rear yard is the main building's rear yard, and to the west is the parking area. I mention this because part of our consideration in developing this proposal was the analysis of the additional noise and sound transmission that might come from this structure if used as a residence. It was our assessment that having the structure as a dwelling unit would create no more noise than if it were a garage or a workshop, and that seasonal rear yard noise and parking noise would not be grossly impacted or increased by this proposal. Lastly, it is worth noting that my clients plan to take extra measures to privatize the structure and limit impact on the neighbors. These include, but are not limited to, closing all of the windows that face onto neighboring properties and fully soundproofing the interior of the building. I'd now like to touch on the variances in the planning report. With an understanding of the proposal and the lot, it seems difficult to rationalize how so many variances could be generated for what would seem like such a straightforward application. Upon further review, one comes to realize that the variances being sought have been exacerbated by the fact that this application is being reviewed under the bylaws as the equivalent to a second new residential building on the same property. This distorts the nature of the proposal and paints it into something that appears more grossly incongruent than it really is. It is interesting to note that if this proposal were to be reviewed under the Laneway Suite bylaws, which would seem more appropriate, almost all of the variances being sought would be removed or greatly reduced. Mr. Santiago speaks to this issue in his report and identifies that no current zoning framework for garden suites exists, and that without such framework, approvals at committee risk setting inappropriate precedents and may lead to unpredictable results. I feel that Mr. Santiago's concerns might be a little exaggerated considering the size and nature of this proposal, and that if there is any concern that approval of this application would create an undesirable precedent, I would simply suggest that committee members tie approval to the site plan and drawings, this way preserving the context of the approval while eliminating the potential for any dissimilar application from leveraging the same variances in the future. Finally, I just want to touch on the support and opposition related to the application. First and foremost, I'd like to point out that I live several doors north of this property and pass it almost daily. I'd like to state for the record that my wife and I are very much in support of this application. With regards to the other letters of support on file, of which I believe there are more than 50, you can see from the sheer number and by their addresses that my clients did a thorough job of informing the surrounding neighborhood, and many of those that bothered to take interest in the matter are in support of this application. With regards to the objections submitted by 307 Craven Road, I think it is worth pointing out they did support the proposal and in fact worked closely with my clients to develop a proposal they felt comfortable supporting. Unfortunately, they included a caveat that all surrounding neighbors also had to support the proposal, which is something that we could not achieve. I wanted to raise this point not to misconstrue the position of 307 Craven, but just to highlight that their objection is not based on the merits of the proposal so much as on our failure to satisfy the terms of their support. Yeah. I'm just going to close. In closing, I wanted to say that so much of the city is non-conforming and imperfect. However, within these areas lie some of the greatest opportunities for continued development and revitalization. I appreciate that guidelines and framework are a necessity, however, understand that they are not always available when needed. In times when city planning's hands have been tied by lack of framework, I see the role that the Committee of Adjustment and its panel members play as being more integral than ever. It is on applications like this that we look to members of the committee to exercise a measure of reasonability and rationality when reviewing the context of an application and when planning simply does not have the tools to properly evaluate things. With all that I've presented, it is my humble submission that this proposal can be considered desirable for the appropriate development of the land. Furthermore, it is my opinion that these variances should be considered minor in context to the property, and that approval of these variances will maintain the intent of both the official plan and zoning bylaws. I feel it is clear that this application meets the required 4 tests and should be approved accordingly. Thank you.
Fifteen seconds remaining.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi, my name is Angelica. I am going to be speaking on behalf of Harold. I reside with him at 198 Road. With all due respect, hello? Hi. Yep, Angelica Alacina, residing at 198 Roads. Okay, so with all due respect, the 50 letters of support, or over 50 letters of support that you have been able to successfully get are none of the properties that will be truly as affected as we are. As you can see from the letter and the picture, our entire backyard, one wall, is the garage. So we are opposed to the building of the residential area instead of the garage because it will lessen our enjoyment of our backyard. As well as you can see, we don't support it because once again, it's the entire wall for our garage. So we have gotten used to it and accustomed it as it is, and we would like to not have any changes to it. As also pointed out in our letter, if you wouldn't mind zooming out a little bit. Oh, sorry. So the biggest problem we have with this potentially residential area is the fact that it's not 7.5 meters from the property line. In fact, it is 0 meters from the property line, which is directly on adjacent to our property. So if there was an issue in the house, for example, a leak in the basement that needed to be fixed, that would require digging potentially from our property or entry onto our property, potential damage to our property in order to fix it for the improvement of the house. And lastly, even though this is our forever home, we do think that it will potentially lessen the property value of our house, which is something that we did have in mind when we purchased our home, but we didn't think it would ever be approved for a residential area. So we thought that a garage is as it is, and we did not think of it to change. And there's a reason that it requires a variance because we assumed the same thing.
Those issues, I mean, again, fundamentally, to address the concerns that were raised, remember that nothing about the garage is changing, so the view doesn't change. With regards to the oblique comment. There's no reason why we'd have to access it from their yard. The homeowners would be obligated to do it from their side. And just to the north side of that shot that Bram had up of their house is the out-yard green space for this building. So with regards to proximity and impact, I don't see how changing the use would change impact on their yard. During nice times of the year, they're outside enjoying their rear yard, as are the people behind them. And during cold times of the year, most of the year, they're inside, and this garage is well at the back of their property. Again, to emphasize that any and all encroachments and the entire size of the building will remain the same, with the exception of that window that you can see being removed out of courtesy to further privatize the building and remove any potential overlook into their yard. I think considering the overall intensity of the area, this is a highly desirable proposal and completely appropriate. Thank you. I do know, yes.
Are we in committee now? Are we in discussion? Okay. Yeah. All right. My take is this. It is a very unusual site, and it's wide enough to really have two houses. And I think that with minimal change to the existing structure, I sort of support the proposal because it is just, I don't think that it will create any kind of negative impact to the neighbors. And I do not agree with the staff report saying that wait until they have bylaw governing garden suites to approve this kind of development, because this is a very unique site and unique context that I think it can support the proposal nicely.
Well, I'll weigh in. I'm going to agree and disagree with you. I actually like this proposal. It's an existing building. It's already there. It's going to be improved, and even enhance the privacy aspect of it to the neighbor immediately behind. Having said that, I am also sympathetic to the city's comments about the prematurity of this, given that Garden Suite, reports and analysis and hopefully a potential new bylaw to allow them hasn't yet happened. It may well be that subject to that review, council may decide to approve these, and frankly, in some respects, that proposal might be able to proceed as of right, or it may have an entirely different set of variances that are required. So as much as I like this project and I'm sympathized with the proponent, and I think it's probably particularly given, the existing condition of it, I'm leaning towards refusal only because it's premature and it might actually benefit from having new policies around garden suites once, hopefully soon, council turns its mind to it.
And I would add my comments. I would agree with Larry with your comments. I do think it's premature. We don't know what other variances might be triggered in the future once the city amends the zoning to permit this type of residential building on the site. So yeah, I would lean as well to refusal. So I would move a motion to refuse the variances. I believe that certainly variance number 2 is definitely not minor in my view, and it would be more appropriate to go through the rezoning process if they wanted to proceed before the city changed its zoning to permit these. So my motion would be to refuse the variances.
Just a
Yeah, I would like the applicant to do a presentation.
Yes, I'm here. Jonathan Benskowski, 301 Keewatin Avenue. Yes, so these are 2 existing lots of record from an original plan of subdivision. Both proposed lots meet the required minimum frontage. So that is why there is no consent that is required with this application. And I have included, as Brand has put up, is the letter from the solicitor indicating that each lot is conveyable and does meet the zoning bylaw requirements for frontage and lot area. So the proposal that is before you today, Brand, if we could go back up to the overhead photo. Yes, so here we see 46 Leroy, which is along with 55, the 2 widest lots within the area itself. As we can also see from this overhead, this is a tightly packed urban landscape neighborhood with tight side yard setbacks. Now, if we could just go down to some of the photos I provided to illustrate that. Yes, so here we see the immediate property to the north. Again, characterized by tight side yard setbacks, integral garage. And if we keep going, Bram, we continue up the street. We kind of see, again, that built form of tight side yard setbacks, a mix of integral garages, and keep going, please. With integral garages, non-integral garages. Again, the characteristic of tight side yard setbacks is prevalent throughout the neighborhood. This is an application that went through some consideration with planning to arrive at the variances that are before you today. In terms of the projection variances for both the side yards in terms of the front balcony and side yard rear balconies, none of them, as we can see from that elevation there, do project beyond the side walls of the house. So all decks and platforms at the front and the rear are proposed to be built in line with the dwelling. They do not extend past either side yard. In terms of the height variance, it is a very modest 0.25 request we are making for that. And it's my opinion that this is appropriate and desirable, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Yeah, I have a question about the lot patterns. So we saw the diagram of the plan of subdivision showing these are all 20-foot lots that have been combined, I guess, into a one large lot. Are there other lots along this street? Look, how many are there that could do exactly the same thing as being proposed?
There is one, and Brand, if we go back to, we can either go to the plan of subdivision or my original presentation package. The only one that would be able to do this would be across the street. It would be number 55. It's essentially almost right across the street. That would be the only other one that would be able to go back to its original plan of subdivision. So through you, Mr. Chair, Nimrod, basically, you know, as properties are developed, sometimes they're not exactly developed with that plan of subdivision. So at some point, somebody did purchase two of these properties, and we can see it here. This as well as 55 would be the only other one that would be able to have this done. All of the rest of them have been developed through a mismatch or combination of lots to arrive at what we see on the overhead of the yellow one in my presentation package.
Can you hear me now? Should I hang up? Okay. Hello? Hello?
Hello? Hello? Can you hear? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Hello? Okay. I'll try. Okay. Have YouTube open. Maybe turn off the sound for that. Okay. I guess I'm gonna put my volume down here. Is this better? Can you hear me now? Can I hear you? You cannot?
If you are satisfied with your message, press 1 to listen.
Hello? Hello? So now I'm speaking through a phone line. Okay, so I'm speaking through a phone line. Should I disconnect the WebEx and talk just to the phone? I can't hear you. Okay. I'm at my work office. I'm using my office phone. Oh, Okay, now I have my cell phone. Am I okay? Okay, I'm sorry, I'll just speak to it. Okay, so I'm speaking on the part 2. So I think my name is Kimberly Meehan from 48 Leroy Avenue. So at this point, I would like to express opposition for the severing of the current property and creating a new lot. Oh, it's currently 1 lot. Oh, is that from years ago? Okay. So my concern is the regarding variances. So variance 1 with the proposed deck to be added 0.62 meters from the north side of the lot line will impact the elevation and overlooks into my current yard, creating some privacy concerns. I also have a 100-year-old silver maple tree in my backyard, which is quite close to that line. And so I'm looking for a tree preservation plan because my arborist has asked with regards to the concerns of construction and severing that, the roots. And I have some concerns with regards of the reduced sunlight that I receive because of all of the length of the building or the home that's being proposed. And then also on the north side, variance 3, the impact on the property in the right-of-way and access to home repairs on the south side of my home, such as roofing, brickwork, foundation repairs. So I'm just concerned it's a bit too close in order to be able to have future repair work done. And then it is a slight variance for the height, but it does come only about 6 inches, or it's very, very close to the property. And so it's just the runoff that would impact on that. I think that overall that was that. It was just I was concerned about less green space, the impact to the tree, and the length of the home that will actually take away all of my sunlight from both of my porches, both front and back.
Yes, hi. Maybe, Bram, if we could just put up the survey quickly, it may just illustrate the lot, the 2 lots of record, just quickly to kind of alleviate that concern. Here we see at the back, we see lot 206 and lot 207. Those are considered the whole lots that are there. There is no change to that. And again, both of them comply with the zoning bylaw for the neighborhood. In terms of the loss of any landscaping, there is no request for any landscaping variance, nor is there a request for a building length variance. There is no existing right-of-way between the 2 dwellings. The neighbor to the north is located 0.61 meters from the property line, which is essentially the proposal that is before you today. As well as that neighbor to the south is actually located 0.4 meters from the south lot line. So that even further illustrates the built form of that tightly packed urban neighborhood. In terms of the tree, I see the tree on the survey. It is located considerably in the rear yard. We're happy to comply with conditions of forestry for both Part 1 and Part 2. And lastly, in terms of any runoff, a grading plan, if this is considered meritorious and approved, a grading plan would be required by Toronto Building for construction of both new dwellings to retain all rainwater runoff onto the property itself. And I think that really answers the questions of the neighbor, and I'm happy to answer anything you have.
Yeah, I'll start. I see in general, looking at all the variances, they're all very minor. I think the built form being proposed for the site plan looks exactly like many of the other buildings that are recently built on the street in the neighborhood. So I'm supportive of this application. I'll move a motion that we approve. Subject, are we doing Part 1 and Part 2 together, Chair, or doing separately? Then I will move approval of Part 1 subject to urban forestry condition number 1.
I'll second that.
Jonathan Benskowski, 301 Keewatin Avenue. Very similar, just that the proposed side yard does match that existing property to the north, further again illustrating the built form of the neighborhood.
Are there any variances different for Part A and Part 2, Part 1 and Part 2?
Only as it would relate to the north and side yard setbacks flipped. Other than that, they're identical.
Okay, thank you.
Hello? Oh, no. I'm sorry, but it looks like I can't talk again. Oh, okay. I actually was addressing Part 2 when I expressed my concerns with regards to the tree. I'm on the north side of the of this proposal, which I believe from the plans that I was given is Part 2. So so my concern was the fact that the proposed house being built will encroach on it encroaches both on my front deck and my back deck, which means there'll be no sunlight, and then the whole privacy issue of the extension of the deck that goes further out of the house into the privacy of my yard, and the tree, because the tree is on that side. Thank you.
Yes, again, that tree, as we see on the site plan, is considerably located in the rear yard. I don't think there's any issue if you see fit, members of committee, we don't mind submitting a tree application or submitting an arborist report. But as you can see, that tree is considerably in the rear yard. Not only that, it's considerably set in from that property line that exists there today with an existing fence. I don't think there's any issue with it. And Urban Forestry did not identify it as an issue either in their report or recommendation for part 2.
No, part 3, Urban Forestry put on condition for part 2, 2 anyway. I think it's forestry condition number 3. So, Larry, you want to make the motion because similar or?
You go ahead.
I will make a motion for approval with the Urban Forestry condition number 3.
Yep, I'm here. Yep, good afternoon, Chair and Committee. My name is Ken Tai from Tai Architect. I'm representing the clients, the owners 232 Major Street and 234 Major Street. So yeah, I'm going to explain a little bit the 232 Major Street for now. We're asking 5 variants, and the first variance we're asking the floor space index increased to 1.14 times, which is we permitted for 1 times floor space index. In general term, we're adding 195 square feet for the building. For the second variance we're asking is asking for the building depth from permitted 17 meter to 17.81. We're asking 0.81 meters. For the variance number 3 and number 5 is related to the existing conditions regarding the porch, which is the front yard setback and also the encroachment. The number 4 is the ancillary building, which is we're rebuilding the existing garage, which is also the existing conditions. We just rebuilt it at the same time. So so that is what we're asking. Yeah, thank you.
Chair, I just have a quick one. I see you were in for an approval last year for, looks like, interior renovations and some facade work. Just wondering why you didn't seek approval for this addition at the same time you were doing the work last year.
Last year I didn't handle the applications. I'm not familiar with what we're asking this year. Is the clients thinking for the new addition? So I think that's what they want to ask. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes. On my notes, there are actually 6 variances, but you mentioned only 5.
Yeah, the 6th one is the traffic permit. We already got it, which is the encroachment and the walkout permit, which is the existing conditions at the front stairs and the porch. Yeah, related. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the front yard setback, right?
Yeah.
I think. Okay, you didn't mention it. I thought maybe the agenda had been revised. That's okay.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else speaking, or are we into committee now?
I think we're in committee.
Okay. So I can start. I think the variances are minor. It's a small addition at the rear, and so I would move approval of the variances, and I don't believe there's any forestry conditions. No.
No. No. Mm-hmm.
Chair. Hi, Chair and committee. This again, I'm Ken Tai from Thai Architect. This is the other half of the semi-detached. We're asking slightly larger for the. The first one we're asking is the encroachment, which is the existing conditions about the front porch. The second one is a building depth. I was reading the notice actually. The notice say 17.61 we're asking, but all the drawings we submit is actually same as the 232 Major Street is 17.81. I want to ask the committee to approve the 17.81 building depth, same as the previous applications. And the number 3 is. That's the one. Yeah, the mail is showing 17.61 meters, but all the drawings are always our submission is 17.81. So I want to ask for 17.81 instead. And can I continue? Hello?
I do not know whether we can do that to increase variance without sending it to the public. We can decrease it, but I do not think we can increase it. Yeah.
Yeah, because all the drawings that I submit in the site plan is actually 17. The lot is identical, and our site plan actually showed this 17.81. This is you're looking at the 232. I have the 234, and other drawings, which is also indicated 17.81. Yeah. So this is the 232 file. So you need to open the 234 site plan.
Can I put a comment in? Sometimes this is building depth. Sometimes they measure it from a different from the property line rather than from your building. Or maybe that's why.
It's right now, if you look at the site plan right now, is on the top of the 234 building is indicate 17.81. That's I just, yeah. It's same as the 232, so I just want to. 17.81, which is the same. Yep, you can see that in the site plan. Yep. Okay, but if you're looking at, go back to the 232 site plan, that's actually from, that's a snow, I think this drawing didn't point out the same projections. If you're looking, going back to the file 232, is actually indicate is 17.81. That's a, correct.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I suspect. Maybe it's taking them from a different point.
Yeah, this in this diagram, the 232 dimension it is not taking in the same point. Yeah, it's a typo.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think there's any opposition or mention this. And what do you suggest, Anita? We just revise it as a typo. I am okay.
I'm okay with it.
No, yeah, I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it as well. In part because the two side-by-side semis line up. So if it was dramatically different, I think we might have a concern. But the fact that they're mirroring each other, I'm reasonably comfortable with that that difference.
Yeah, I agree as well.
So I can move for approval, but also for the previous one, we have to amend it to the new figure, to the measurement, right? So yes, for the record. And then I move for approval for 234 Major Street. I don't think there's any condition either.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, so as you just said, this is for an application to construct a laneway house and to, right, my name is Edward Weinberg. My address is 17 Olive Avenue, Toronto. I am the architect of the proposal and am speaking here on behalf of the owners of the house, Alan and Karen Kaja. So the proposal is to demolish their existing two-car garage and build in lieu a laneway house at the back of their property, adjacent to the laneway. I can't remember the name of it, but just so you know that this proposal was originally submitted in February and has gone through considerable changes in response to comments made by both neighbors and the planning department. The major asks of this proposal was for a taller building, and it has now been reduced to a two-story laneway house within the restrictions of the proposed bylaw. Now, there are, according to the application, 6 variances still requested, and to our mind, they're all very minor requests. Number 1 has to do with the rear yard setback, which has to be 1.5 meters, and in lieu, we're requesting it be 0.75 meters in order to align with the existing attached garage. So if you go to the site plan, you can see, right, go to, yes, that one, you can see how the back of the garage is fastened to the adjacent neighbor's garage, and how the intention is that the faces of the wall align with each other in the laneway. It's a wide lane, it's 6 meters, and we don't think that this will have you know, a negative effect on the laneway as it is, considering that most of the garages on the laneway are at this location already. The second point, which is similar to point number 6, has to do with home occupation purpose. If you look at the ground floor layout, you can see it's done as a home office, and Alan and Karen Kaja on occasion have employees who come in and help them with their company. There's some reference made to a doctor or provision of medical office. They run a dance company, and so there is no fallback on them providing any kind of medical service at all. Number 3 and 4 have to do with the percentages of landscaped area in both the front and the middle yard, in the backyard and in the middle yard, and the areas of soft landscaping relative to hard landscaping is less than what's required by the zoning bylaw. You should know that the middle yard's layout is pretty well the same as it is right now, except with the addition of some permeable paving. And if you go to the, again, to the site plan, you can see the permeable paving adjacent to the entrances to the laneway house, as well as to the garage that's there. So that leaves item number 5. And I'd like to point out that there is a typo in item number 5. It reads, the gross floor area of the laneway house must be less than the gross floor area of the residential building on the lot. In fact, the zoning bylaw says the interior floor area, not the gross floor area. So I think that there was some mistake in typing this out. Certainly I had a fair bit of back and forth with the zoning examiner on the definition of interior floor area relative to gross floor area. So I know, you know, what it should say, gross floor area. Yes, it is different, certainly. But it's, okay, the interior floor area refers to all floors measured to the inside face of the building and includes both the garage and the basement. Gross floor area for residential purposes does not include basement and does not include garage and is measured to the exterior face of the wall. So why the framers of the bylaw saw it fit to compare interior floor area to gross floor area, I'm not sure, but it certainly leads to an enormous amount of confusion, I think. And certainly I know that there was a number of letters written in opposition to this, and they pointed out the fact that in their reading of it, that the laneway house is bigger than the house itself. And in fact, this is not true because of the different measurements that are taken. Again, the gross floor area is 178.58 square meters and is only the ground floor and the second floor of the house, while the ask for the laneway of 186 includes the basement. There's a full basement underneath the laneway house, as well as the garage itself. If we were comparing apples to apples, then the gross floor area of the laneway house is actually 117 square meters. So if, in fact, the bylaw was asking for gross floor area, this request would not appear at all because it would meet the requirements. But I was told, no, it's measuring gross interior floor area. Say it's an orange compared to the apple of the gross floor area of the house itself. Oh, because of the way the bylaw is written. Like I said, the bylaw states the interior floor area of the laneway house, laneway suite. It shouldn't say gross floor area, it should say interior floor area. I can refer you to, yes. So it's, that's correct. That's correct. If we were comparing apples to apples, then this request would not appear here. But the zoning bylaw says something different. No, it's not the case. If you look at the areas that are shown on the sheets and on the drawings, you can see how the measurements are taken. And again, if it was an issue, then my clients could simply make the basement smaller. The above ground area of the house would not change at all. In all other respects, the massing of the laneway house meets the requirements of the bylaw. Yes, bylaws for laneway suites, correct. Well, variance, as I said, variance 6 and variance 2 are very similar to each other. They're just referring to different areas of the I guess the general bylaw. One is to allow for employees, and one is to allow for employees in an office that's not for medical offices. No, no, they run a dance company, a modern dance company. No, no. It's and for administrative purposes only. You know, they in fact have always run their company out of their home, and it's pretty interesting because they are a significant dance company in the city of Toronto and in Canada, but they run it as a mom and pop kind of business, so to speak, and they've always run it out of small set of offices that they sit in and use. And that's the intention, to, when this laneway house is built, to move themselves and the office to the laneway house. Well, on occasion, they will have a manager who helps them out in the administration of the dance company, and the manager will come and sit in the office. Occasionally, the manager will have an assistant, but that comes and goes. They don't always have the manager there. Especially in these times, they've learned how to conduct their business through remote circumstances. And they find I would say once or twice a week, something like that.
Just maybe, oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Nimrod, you go ahead.
Okay. So I just wanted to clarify, this laneway building will have a basement.
Correct.
So, you know, all the laneway suites that I've seen come through committee, I think this is the first one that I've seen that has a basement. And I'm wondering if that is unusual, and maybe that's the reason that there's this issue of how do you measure the interior space versus the GFA space. And maybe that the thought was with the planning of permissions for laneway suites, was there a thought that they would have basements?
You know, that's an excellent question, and I can't answer that. All I can tell you is that in the designing of the laneway suite, we were trying to figure out where to put mechanical space, you know, because there wasn't sufficient room on the ground floor to do that. You know, you have the garage and the storage room for bicycles, and then the office itself, you know, and there wasn't any room for mechanical equipment. And then they said, well, as long as we're building the basement, we might as well have storage down there for various purposes. They use their garage a bit now as storage, and they figure, well, they can have something underneath. And you're right, it is unusual. It's unusual in fact that they are proposing to have a basement underneath the garage slab, and that's, you know, typically you don't even do that for a house because of the nature of the car sitting on the slab. I pointed out the cost to them of putting in a structural slab in that location, and they said, well, you know, let's do it for now. But the truth is, if I were to put in half a basement, only underneath the habitable part, then again, this ask for number 5 would not be there, because that's what's bumping it beyond the definition as stated in the zoning bylaw.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, just one quick one. What we haven't really talked about, I just want to confirm. So it looks like from the site plan, it's office and a car parking area on the main floor, some storage in the basement, but there is a rental unit above. Is that correct? And the owner's intent is actually to rent that out to a separate tenant.
Well, you know, it's a good question, because I think eventually they intend on living there. You know, they've been downsizing since their kids are older and have moved out, and the house is much bigger than what they need for their own purposes. So, you know, they may use it. They also may use it on, you know, on behalf of the dance company, because they often have dancers visit from other parts of Canada and the world, and they come and stay with them, you know, in spare bedrooms that they have in their house. So for a greater sense of privacy, or depending how long, you know, the dancers may come to visit, they may give them the laneway house as a place to stay in as well. But I think over time, that is their intention, to transition to living actually in the laneway house.
Yeah, I get that. But, you know, I hearken back a little bit to council's approval of laneway suites. One of the real reasons for it was to increase the rental stock, right? So the idea is to provide tenants with the opportunity to live in existing neighborhoods. So I would hope that, you know, the purpose of this is really to provide rental space for people who need it.
Well, if they move into the laneway house, then they will be offering the main house as a place to live for rental
Fair enough.
purposes. You know, but their intention is to keep the property, not to move away, and to stay in the neighborhood, and to you know, live in either one or the other as suits them.
Am I audible? Thank you. Thank you, committee, for the opportunity to state our views on this matter for the public record. Mr. Chairman and committee, I represent a group of neighbors who have been working together assiduously for several months to respond to this proposal. And certainly, it's Sheldon Rose, 92 London Street. No, I am merely the first to speak. So we will speak on, we will concentrate on different issues, each of us, but most of us share the common concern. I, for instance, have had flooding issues in recent years, which is an issue on which I believe this proposal has a bearing, but I will not speak principally on it. I would like to disagree, firstly, that there was a meaningful consultation between the applicants and the neighbors. The first that we caught wind was quite underground, and although there may have been some effort made, none of us speaking today was ever contacted originally and only found out about these plans after the original proposal had already been tabled. And as the applicant stated, the present request for variances represent a downsizing, if I can use that word, of a preposterously oversized and out of scale original proposal, which the city did duly reject. It is to me scarcely credible that the applicants would not have known that their original proposal would be rejected out of hand. And we do sense that the revised proposal, which has resulted in the request for these variances, seeks essentially to establish the original and authentic true intent of the applicants, which is to press for a building as large as possible without due regard for the catastrophic impact on the quality of life for several abutting neighbors. These matters do not speak to the variances requested directly and explicitly, but they certainly speak to the intentions of the official plan and the zoning bylaws with respect to light, shadowing, and privacy. But each of us will now speak directly to the variances, and I will speak first to the issue of the setback. It is clear that continued development makes increasing demands on our shared use of the laneways. Already, oncoming vehicular traffic is required to veer to within inches of garage doors in order to pass each other. I have to take exception with the applicant's statement of the width. I measured the laneway from north to south end, and with the exception of the bottlenecks where the laneway actually intersects London Street and Barton Avenue at the south and north ends respectively, those properties, of course, are parallel to the laneway, and of course, there's no shoulder at all. They're very narrow. The rest of the laneway varies between 17 feet and 27 feet in width, with the majority of it being closer to 27 feet. The proposal at 734 Euclid is exactly abutting that part of the laneway which is otherwise at its narrowest, which is to say just under 17 feet, as the applicant said, 6 meters. I do not find this to be not a problem when I consider the increased traffic that the laneway is going to have to bear in coming years. One can imagine, after a precedent has been set, a whole line of adjoined two-story laneway suite frontages all along the laneway, reducing the view of daylight in the laneway by perhaps 50% or more. There would, of course, still be daylight and a sky view visible straight up. So infants on their backs in carriages would be the least affected. The pedestrians, perhaps, the most. I think this issue speaks directly to the purpose and intent of the official plan in making the laneways hospitable and a safe place for all users. We are concerned that the granting the requested variances in this setback will set a dangerous precedent with far-reaching consequences for the future character of the neighborhood. And now I would like to invite the next speaker to take their place.
Yeah, I did have a question on the rear yard setback. And if you can just pull up the plan, if that's possible, the site plan. So when I'm, yeah, so that, whoops. So just to clarify, that rear yard setback, I thought it was showing 3 feet and something. Where is that number? So maybe just to ask the speaker if he can just indicate what does he see is the rear yard setback?
I'm sorry, you're looking for what answer?
Yeah, so you'd mentioned you're concerned that the setback from at the rear.
Yes.
From laneway. So what is it that you see is the setback from the laneway? Because
well, the zoning asks for 1.5 meters, and the proposal asks for a variance to permit a reduction by 50% to 0.75 meters.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we feel that with the narrowing of the laneway at that spot and in consideration of increased traffic and further development, it's not a good idea to reduce that number. We feel that the number was arrived at after a long and careful consideration and due process, and that many difficult decisions were made and arrived at, and that setting a precedent by not requiring the development to stick to the plan would have a very deleterious consequence on the livability of the lane.
Okay.
In the lane itself.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ann Mullen. I live at 94 London Street, and I would like to address a few points as well. First of all, to reiterate what Sheldon Rose said, the neighbors were never consulted about the first proposal. In contrast to what the architect has just told you, we only heard about the second proposal. Second, in regards to the square footage measurements and the interior space, I had some concerns about that myself. I had 2 extended conversations with Ryan Santiago, who is the city planner, about this issue, and was reassured both times that those measurements were appropriate for the bylaws and the way that these kinds of measurements are typically done. So I think if there's any issue in regards to that or any doubts, that's not something that can be resolved by a casual conversation right now at the COA hearing. And I would suggest if that is an issue, that this topic be deferred, or this application be deferred if that needs to be resolved. Otherwise, I think we should go with the stated numbers on the application. So moving on, I'd like to address again some additional points of consideration and request to the variance for the rear yard setback. And if you could leave this image up that you just had up, that would be really helpful, because I'd like to draw some attention to the unique configuration of the lots on London Street that are abutting the applicant's lots on Euclid Ave. So you can see, of course, that these are not parallel lots, as would be the case for most sites in which a laneway suite would be built. And also that the applicant's lot is much, much larger than our own lots. The applicant's lot is about 4 times larger than any of the 8 small lots facing it on London Street. And third, the laneway suite will be located a very, very close distance, particularly from the 96, 94, and 92 London Street. The distance from my own home will only be about 4 meters, or about 13 feet. So I bring this up because I'd like to ask the committee to take these unusual features into account in assessing the impact of the variances requested for the structure on the neighboring homes. So in terms of the setback, the variance asks for a 50% reduction. I would not think that 50% constitutes a minor variance. Further, the City of Toronto official plans specifically directs that new development be located in a way that's sensitive to and respects the existing character of a neighborhood, noting in particular the scale of nearby properties, in part to protect light and open spaces. And if you can go down now to page 4 of my letter, I had an architectural rendering done that shows my current view and the view after the proposed laneway suite would be built. And you can see that this development will entirely box in the back of my lot at an extremely close distance. And I'll be losing the entire northern view of the sky and the beautiful old neighborhood trees that grow all down the laneway from my backyard and the rear windows on my first floor. And this is also true for the owner at 96 London Street, Pat Cross, and also will greatly diminish the views from 92 London Street. However, the residents of these homes would still have a very small remaining view of the sky and large trees towards the northwest if the laneway suite were properly set back to the required 1.5 meters. So to grant this variance and allow the building to extend an extra 0.775 meters or 2.5 feet towards the west means that we'll lose what little remaining view we might still have and further diminish the enjoyment of our small backyards. I also speak today on behalf of Mrs. Grace Hanson, who is not able to attend but wrote a letter. She lives at 106 London Street. In terms of the impact of this variance on her property, the proposed structure would be situated in very close proximity, just a little over 4 meters from her garden. And not only would it overshadow her garden and entirely block the morning and early afternoon sunlight, but her privacy will be compromised by the 4 very large windows that would look directly down onto her property. Again, allowing this variance means that her light and privacy will be diminished that much more than if the structure were located the required distance from the rear property line. So for these reasons, in order to minimize the negative impacts on these 4 properties that would occur from granting the rear yard setback, I ask the committee to reject this variance. And the second issue I would like to address is the proposed gross floor area of the structure, variance number 5. The proposal, in spite of possible misunderstandings about how much of a variance this is, at present we can understand this, that they're constructing a laneway suite that will actually be larger than the principal home on the property. And this proposal runs counter to the most fundamental principle guiding the development of laneway suites, that they be smaller in scale and area and subordinate to the main house. And these principles are consistently stated throughout every single planning document related to the laneway initiative. And I understand that the applicant has mentioned that the proposal meets the other size requirements, but in my view, because the floor area requirement is so central to the intent and purpose of laneway suites, I would say this should not sway the committee's opinion. Second, I would like to again call attention to the massing and scale of the neighborhood. The proposed laneway suite would be twice as big as our own homes and larger in area than our entire lot sizes. The problem here is again that because of these disparities in scale and because of the exceptionally close proximity to our homes, any increase in size over that allowed will disproportionately negatively affect the quality of life and space of the inhabitants of the homes on London Street. And because of the City of Toronto neighborhood guidelines that stipulate that massing and scale of neighborhoods needs to be considered in issues of densification, I would ask the committee to take this into serious consideration and hold owners to the bylaws and not grant this variance. So in closing, the variances intent and purpose of the bylaws or the official plan because of the unique lot configuration, massing and scale of adjoining properties. The requested variances will have an inordinately negative effect on the immediate neighbors. So I hope the committee will keep in mind the considerable and irrevocable costs exacted by this plan on the character of the neighborhood and the quality of life of the neighborhoods. And I respectfully ask that the thank you. Yes. It is in line, but it will be twice as tall as the existing garages. Yes, I think you can see it from the image in my letter. The main view of the trees and the sky is to the northwest. So because the proposed site will extend 0.75 meters further to the northwest, to the west, it blocks that view more than it needs to. So that's where our main view is coming from, is from the northwest. And that's why it being situated where it's supposed to be, 0.75 meters further to the east, would allow us to retain just a little bit of our existing view. Right, well, it will be my property and Pat Cross's property at 96 London Street. And Sheldon, who is at 92 London Street, he and I have spoken about this issue. And his view also is primarily to the northwest. So he also would approve having this moved to 0.75 meters east, which you can discuss with him right now because I believe he's still here.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me? Oh, good, okay. Yes, my name is Astrida Florens and I live at 90 London Street. And my house is the middle of the row of 8 houses. So Sheldon Rose is my immediate neighbor to the west, followed by Ann Mullen and Pat Cross. And just for the first point of clarification, I have never been consulted by the owner of the property at 734 Euclid. The first notice that I got of this request for variance was in the letter I received from the city. What is disturbing to me, as I've written in my letter to you as well, are the variance requests for considerable reduction of soft landscaping. The minimum requirement between the ancillary building, which would be the laneway house, and the main house is 85% according to the bylaw. The owner in this case is requesting 35.5%. To me, this is a major reduction. It doesn't seem to me to be a minor variance. And the reason that I am concerned about soft landscaping, my house, as well as all the other houses in the row, are actually well over 100 years old. My house was built originally in 1890s. It's a Victorian house, and over the years that I've owned it, and my grandfather actually originally bought the house in the 1950s, it's remained in my family. My family, as well as myself, have made considerable investments in improving the house, improving the interior design, and as well as dealing with what has been a chronic problem is basement flooding. When we have severe weather conditions, as happens more often in the city of Toronto, flooding is a major issue for my house. I have reinforced the basement walls. There is nothing that sits on the floor in the basement just to deal with flooding problems. And the soft landscaping area that's currently available in my neighbor's backyard, which happens to be about 5 meters, the border between my yard and their yard is about 5 meters in distance. That will be considerably reduced. And with the addition of a full basement to the ancillary building, any now rainfall that occurs in the city will be redirected into my yard. And as I'm sure you're quite well aware, the city has had considerable issues and problems with flooding in severe weather conditions, and especially in the older parts of Toronto, which is where I live. And flooding includes things like the subway, underground parking, any lower level buildings under bridgeways. And it certainly has been a chronic problem in my area. Last year, my insurance rates, my house insurance rates went up according to my insurance company because of the number of claims in the area for flooding of basements and repair of the same. I have never put a claim in. I've always fixed it myself. And I'm very concerned that this problem will just worsen with the reduction of available drainage and runoff area that is in my neighbor's yard. And for those reasons, I would request that the committee not approve the variance because I do see it as a major change and a major loss in open green space. In my neighbor's yard, no, I don't.
Can you hear me? Okay, first, thank you for taking time to listen to my statement. My name is Ilyas Farah, and with my wife and daughter, I lived at 88 London Street since 2004. This is one of the 8 row houses adjacent to the 734 Euclid lot. And I also learned about this proposal from a letter sent by the city a couple of weeks ago. In addition to objecting to other variances, my main concern is flooding. Each of our 8 row houses has a small backyard, about 4 by 5 meters, and they are all adjacent to the 734 Euclid lot. And at least 3 of these houses, ours included, have had serious flooding issues in the past. The floods have ranged from large puddles on the basement floor to a case where the entire basement was flooded ankle deep in water, damaging the northern wall, which is wall towards the 734 Euclid lot adjacent to our backyard. And the backyard itself was completely flooded on several occasions after heavy rains. Just like Astrida, I don't know exactly what are the measurements of the soft landscaping, but clearly this plan includes further reduction of soft landscaping. And I should also say, proposal that just came up in moving the entire house further east would even make the problem worse. And another part of the proposal is removal of mature cedar tree. Now, mature cedar tree soaks up to 30 gallons of water every day. And even if it is replaced by new trees, these new trees will take a couple of decades to mature. During that time, our flooding risk will be increased again. And now, we just heard that there is a plan to replace soft landscaping with water permeable pavers. Okay, that they're better than hardscaping, but the research shows that they are not nearly as good as soft landscaping in reducing water runoff. And what is worse, they become clogged over time, thus reducing their efficiency even further. And as Frida mentioned, the basement, just the addition of basement would reduce the ability of the surrounding land to absorb the water even further. And all this seriously increases the propensity for flooding. I would say that allowing a variance like this one would set a precedent that could possibly change the entire Laneway Suite initiative. And because of this, I ask the committee to reject these variances. Thank you very much.
audio settings, microphone. I'm trying to, but I'm not getting anywhere. I can't. Can you hear me? Oh, well, in that case, you can hear me. I'm sorry. I thought you couldn't hear me. My name is Pat Cross, and I'm at 96 London Street. And I want to say first that I'm absolutely in support of the development of laneway suites for the purpose of increasing the stock of housing in Toronto, especially small-scale housing for rental or aging in place. I believe this is not only appropriate for our growing city, but also adds to the vitality and charm of our neighbourhood laneways. I think they're lovely. I lovely seeing the laneway suites. But I object to a minor variance for this particular laneway suite on the following grounds. First, both separately and together, the variance sources are not minor. A minor variance might be between 5% and 10%. However, almost all of the requested variances range between 28% and 59%. And I don't think these are minor. The most egregious is cutting back the soft landscaping by 59%, leading to enhanced risk of flooding, obviously. But having the suites larger rather than smaller than the principal residence and having the setback from the laneway cut by 50% are also major variances. And the request to have 2 employees working in the home occupation, in the home, breaks these zoning bylaws. First of all, they say if they are employees, they have to be medical. And second, they say only one. So not only are they want a different sort of employee, but they want double the number. So it's a major variance, not a minor one. And then it does not maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan, because the official plan, section 3.1.2, says new development must provide for adequate light and adequately limiting shadowing of neighbouring properties. At 96 London Street, my sky and street view will be eclipsed by a 2-story wall 4 metres from my porch, and the ambient light into my house will be greatly diminished. And this will also be true for my neighbours in 94 and 92 London Street, and you saw that Anne showed you a picture of how her garden will look with no view at all. Just to open up that last point, being built in 1892, our 8-row houses on London Street were carved out of 2 lots, if we measure it from Euclid Avenue, which was then called Hope Avenue. They were built just before there was an obligation of getting a building permit. That's how they were able to get away with this. As a result, our gardens are 15 feet, 5 meters wide by 4 meters deep. They're just little patches of sunlight and flowers, but they're important refuges for us. The 3 western gardens will be sandwiched between our 3-story houses and this new 2-story house. I do not think this then maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan. It will also affect the resale value of our houses. And the third thing is that it does not maintain the general purpose and intent of the city's zoning code and bylaws. It seems to us as if the applicants have deliberately pushed against every restriction of the official plan and the bylaws. Look at them, this range of variances. These variances would no doubt benefit the applicants, but come at a very high cost to the rest of us. And there doesn't appear to be any particular driving necessity for these variances, just wanting more land, more house. It's only been a little over 2 years since Bill 825 was passed by City Council to allow for the development of laneway suites in Toronto. Allowing these large variances to proceed will set an unfortunate precedent for laneway suites. As we move cautiously into new ways of providing housing for all, it's imperative that the planning guidelines and the rules that were developed so carefully and with such excellent public input a few years ago are not quickly eaten away by providing examples of where all the care taken to introduce new housing without spoiling the neighbourhoods is ignored. If we want Torontonians to embrace laneway suites, We cannot let major variances be passed off as minor and license given to the greedy. That is as much as I want to say.
Hi. I'm not either. I don't oppose it, or I'm just here basically to find out some more information because I just found out about it recently. My name's Martha Weaver, and I'm at 108 London Street. I am concerned about the neighbors, and also this laneway suite would be looking directly into our backyard, as of the neighbors, my neighbors at 106 and 104. The laneway that it's being built on is a very high traffic laneway in both directions. Yes, I'm just I just basically said I was here to listen to what's happening, and concerned about privacy issues for myself and my neighbors. No.
Yes, hello, can you hear me? If you give me a moment, I can calculate what that is. So the new proposed walkway between where the existing is and the laneway house is about 8.4 square meters. So the hard portion, bear with me a moment. Almost there. So the existing circumstance of soft portion versus total landscape is about 44%. Thereabouts. But it should be pointed out that the area adjoining the lots to the south do not change. If you look, you can see from the site plan that the new paving runs about the middle of the area. You know, it's permeable paving. But it should be pointed out as well that during the building permit process, a drainage plan has to be submitted for approval by the city to demonstrate how the rear yard is to be drained. You know, it's not the policies of the city is that water is not supposed to drain from one neighbor to the next. And so as part of the permit process, they will want us to demonstrate where the water is going to go. And if necessary, you know, a French drain or some other means has to be provided in order to soak up the water. So if in fact the neighbors are having issues with water, and who can say for sure if any of it is coming from our property as opposed to their own neighboring property, then this would be rectified through the building permit process. That is correct. That is correct. Right. Yes. If you look actually at the plan, you can see that at the ground floor, the setback is actually greater than 0.75. The 0.75 is to the upper story. You have to go back to the site plan. Okay, and if you look at the dimension, you can see where it says 115.14. And just beside that, you can see that the dimension is to a dashed line above. Right, so the actual setback at ground is about 1 meter. So the 0.75 setback is to the second floor, not to the ground floor. Well, we already discussed the size of the house, the real size of the laneway house, as opposed to laneway suite, as opposed to what is being stated in the zoning bylaw. And again, there's no question that it is smaller than the existing house. This laneway house is about 1,200 square feet, and the existing house is, I think, about 2,000 square feet. Actually, I can calculate that. Right, sorry about that. Can I just point out one further thing? The laneway house is to the north of these houses, so it's not blocking sunlight.
Chair, quick question of the applicant from me. The principal residence is a semi. We've heard a lot of concern from those neighbors in the row homes. Have you discussed this proposal with the adjoining owner to your semi?
Yes, my understanding is that the adjoining owner was going to be writing a letter of support, actually. There is a letter of support from the neighbor immediately across on the other side of the laneway. That the adjoining neighbor was going to be writing a letter of support, but there was some, I think, family emergency, and he never ended up writing the letter. That's my understanding. Now, there was also exchange of letters with the other neighbors, whether they were included. All of them were included in that exchange of letters. I'm not sure. I know that from my client that he did meet with the neighbors. He did have a discussion with them. They wrote a letter to him and he wrote letters back. You know, so that's as much as I know. I know that there was some offer on discussing the character of the wall of the house that would face onto their property, but that's not been pursued.
Are we in committee now? Okay, can I just make a couple of comments? What troubled me with this proposal is that whether we are in keeping with the general purpose or intent of laneway housing, which is to give a very gentle or moderate increase in densities in order to allow more affordable units. But what troubles me is that if this building is existing, there's a lot of limitation that we have to follow, and then I can understand some of these variances. But since this is a new construction, I'm not too sure why you cannot comply. And the floor area, I think, is fair to include the basement, because this is the first time we see a laneway house proposal has a basement. The argument is that they have to there's no place to put the mechanical units, mechanical equipment. I do not agree with that argument, because all these other laneway houses, they also have mechanical equipment. They can just put it in a little closet if they want. So I think that this proposal is trying to maximize everything, and accumulatively, I think none of those all the minor variances become major variances. That's my opinion.
I'll give my comments. I would agree with those comments of Yim. I think it's an overdevelopment of the property. It looks like it's going to have 2 houses on the one lot. And I also have concerns with then running a business. I wouldn't call it a home occupation, but a business where employees are coming to this laneway building as well. To me, this does not seem minor and not in keeping with the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw.
I think I'm just being contrarian today. I don't have. My initial concern was about the use of this dwelling as an office that would generate client traffic, and it sounds like it isn't that nature of a business, so I'm less concerned about that. I do note that there isn't a request for a variance for height or length. It's really all about gross floor area. So I acknowledge the concerns of the adjacent neighbors, but the height isn't something that they're seeking relief from. So I'm not as opposed to this as my colleagues are.
So I'll put forward a motion to refuse the variances.
Yes, I'm opposed.
Can you hear me? Okay, good afternoon. My name is Nadine Rajani from Drawing Room Architect, and I am presenting on behalf of the owners of 6 DEWBOURNE Avenue. The owners have reached out to all neighbors who may be impacted by the requested variances, and all neighbors are in support of the application. We have also had discussions with the city planner, and she has no objection to the requests. Would the committee like me to go through each variance point by point, or I can...
I have just a question. If this was to be considered to be approved, would they have a problem with tying a condition that this be tied to the site plan drawing A1 so that it shows clearly that the length variance is related only as it relates to the porch addition, the covered porch which connects the house to the garage?
Oh, there we go. Sorry. Yes, we would be in agreement with that.
I'll put a motion. I think the variances are minor, and it's clear that this is really this length variance. The building length really relates to this porch enclosure, and so I would move approval of the requested variances and tie the variances to the site plan drawing A1.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, my name is Maria Denegri. I am a partner at Denegri Basai Studio, and I am here acting as the representative of the owner, Simone D'Angelo. Would you like me to do a presentation?
Yeah, I would move a motion to approve the variances. I believe they are minor, and it would be subject to urban forestry condition.
Isn't it a transportation recommendation too? To ask them to delete the front parking because they have an integral garage in the proposal. There's a transportation recommendation. I do not know whether they have asked whether it should be restored to soft landscape. But can you bring up the transportation? Yeah, the advisory, yeah. So do you want that into a condition? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So I think I had a motion to approve the variances with the conditions subject to urban forestry. Hold on, this is number 28, so it's condition number 1.
Sorry, can you ask a question? Sorry. I second it. I second, I think. Yes. Sorry. I think it's Larry.
I think that was me.
It's not Ms. Chang. My name is Kevin Bichard. I'm an authorized agent for the applicant, Building Boys. It's Kevin Bichard, B-E-C-H-A-R-D. I'm a planner with Weston Consulting. Correct.
Just a quick one. So when reading through some of the material, did I get the impression that the building is under construction or already constructed? Or are you just starting? Hello?
All right. We were working against each other. My apologies. To answer the question through you, Mr. Chair, the building is fully constructed.
So you're seeking to legalize what you've already done.
That's right. We're attempting to just recognize as variances that occurred during construction.
Can you just give us a little bit of explanation as to how you built something that didn't conform with the bylaws?
Essentially, the grade was set too high in the basement. And what happened then, of course, is that the FSI was calculated including the basement floor area. And that's why a variance to the basement is required. In all other respects, the building meets building height, side yard setbacks, rear yard, front yard setbacks, etc. And looking at and going through the analysis of the area, it's consistent. The requested variances are consistent with other variances that have been granted in the area as well. So we've looked at it in terms of the application, official plan policy application under section 4.15. And we're satisfied that the design, the massing of the building is consistent with the neighborhood, which is in fact quite mixed, including single family apartment, semi-detached homes in the immediate area.
So I have a follow-up question then. When was this discovered? After the construction, and then they take a measurement, finding that the floor level is too high? Or
yes,
do you have a working permit already built as it is?
It was just, as I understand, I'm sorry.
I just want to know when
Chair.
it was discovered. Yeah.
And my understanding, it was discovered after construction was complete. After the building was substantially constructed.
Oh, so you had a building permit to build to construct the building in the first place, right? It was just
Correct.
not following the permit drawings.
No, it was an error on behalf of the contractor in setting the elevation of the basement floor too high. And to give you a sense of what that height is, it's about 8 inches too high.
Yes, yeah.
So I think it was 21 centimeters.
Well, I think
That's
it's 16 inches. It's actually 16 inches too high.
Yes, well, what happens when you're calculating the FSI, it would actually be half that amount. If it was set down 8 inches lower, then the FSI variance would not be required, because then the first floor would be closer to grade level. Mm-hmm. So you're correct. Your statement is correct. It's 16 inches too high, but the variance, if it had been set 8 inches lower, then there would be no requirement for variance. So it is, in our view, really quite minor, and it was an error in the construction made at the time of construction.
So in all other ways, the building that's there now is, with the exception of the height issue, is exactly the same as the plans that you've submitted as part of this application. Right. Okay,
right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sure. I'll move a motion to approve this application. It sounds like it was a sort of a minor technical error, not something that was done deliberately or egregiously. So I'm prepared to support it, and I move a motion to approve.
Yes, second.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Hi, this is Parisa Amiri from ARPA Architects. I'm the architect on the file, and my address is 71 Barker Avenue. I'm talking on this application. The purpose of this application is dealing with the three variances we have in front of us. And this is a bungalow that we are proposing partial addition for the second and third floor. And yes.
I just have a minor one for clarification of variance number 1. I do not quite understand it. Can you go through variance number 1 for me, please?
Yes. Sure. Ram, can we have a site plan and a survey? This is the existing bungalow. The survey speaks about it. The main floor, porch, deck, front steps are already existing. We are not touching anything. And the front, the first variance is regarding the existing front porch, which needs to be 54 centimeters away from the existing property line, but has been constructed, and it's non-conformity that we are dealing with. It's already there.
It's existing condition you're talking about.
Yeah, it is existing. Actually, two of the number 1 and number 3 is existing condition. And
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm happy to bring forward a motion. I think the variances are minor. I note that the abutting houses on either side are either 2.5 or 3 stories. And so I think this is minor, and I would move approval of the variances with no conditions.
Yes, I am here. Yes, my name is Allison Platt, and my address is 130 Queens Quay East. Yes, I'd be happy to. I'm appearing as the agent on behalf of Toronto Community Housing Corporation with respect to the minor variance application before you for property municipally known as 175 Oak Street in the Regent Park community. 175 Oak Street is the last TCHC rental replacement building being constructed in Phase 3 of the Regent Park revitalization. To date in Regent Park, TCH has built a total of 1,263 rent geared to income units and 399 new affordable rental units for a total of 1,662 units. 175 Oak Street represents an additional 189 rent geared to income replacement units that are required in order to fulfill TCHC's Section 37 obligation to replace all 2,083 rent geared to income units as part of the revitalization of Regent Park. With the approval for added height to this building, by the end of Phase 3, TCH will have replaced 1,452 rent geared to income units. The remaining rent geared to income units, which are just over 600, will be replaced as part of the future Phases 4 and 5 of the Regent Park revitalization. The proposed building at 175 Oak will be 13 stories in height along Oak and Sumac Streets, stepping down to 7 stories along Oak Street, and then stepping down further to 3 stories along Tubman Avenue. Grade-related townhouses are proposed along the perimeter of the site. 1 level of underground parking is being proposed. In addition to the primary residential use of the building, 466 square meters of accessory office use is being proposed to accommodate TCHC's building operations and tenant support functions for the Regent Park community. A satellite energy plant is also being built, which will be owned and operated by Regent Park Energy, Inc., and it's required to meet the anticipated heating and cooling requirements for the Regent Park community at full build-out. The building proposed for 175 Oak Street has appeared before the Regent Park Design Review Panel on 2 occasions where it was well received. An application for site plan approval has been submitted and has gone through an extensive review by city staff and is nearing completion. Through this process, shadow studies were submitted demonstrating no detrimental impact on surrounding buildings, and the proposed massing of the building has been vetted by community planning and urban design. A total of 11 variances are required to allow the building to be constructed as designed. These can be assigned to 6 broader categories, being bicycle parking, non-residential parking, window setbacks, residential amenity space, building roof elements, and building height. I am aware that 2 letters of objection have been received citing concerns related to the height of the building and the additional density. I'd like to specifically address why we require the variances related to height. The additional building height from 10 stories to 13 stories will permit 3 additional floors of residential use to be constructed, providing 189 additional rent geared to income units in total, and allowing TCH to fulfill its rental replacement obligations. Currently, 263 households require a new unit in Regent Park. Of the 263 households, 73 are currently relocated because their buildings were demolished, and another 190 households currently live in old buildings in phases 4 and 5. The Regent Park Energy, Inc. satellite energy plant that is being constructed within the residential building has mechanical systems that must be located on the roof of the building. These mechanical systems are predominantly housed within enclosures, resulting in a mechanical penthouse that is larger than a typical mechanical penthouse required for a residential building in Regent Park. Accordingly, several variances are required to permit the mechanical elements on the roof of the building to exceed the provisions in the bylaw that control the extent and size of mechanical penthouses. In summary, the requested minor variances will allow the construction of a new social housing building in Regent Park in a manner that will achieve an appropriate built form and ensure land use compatibility with adjacent residential uses proposed to the south and east, and with future residential development envisioned on the Phase 4 and 5 lands to the north. The expansion of the district energy system also achieves the objectives set out in the Regent Park Secondary Plan to advance environmental sustainability. The building will provide an appropriate height transition moving north towards Gerrard Street, and as stated earlier, this development will allow TCH to fulfill its obligations to provide additional rent geared to income units. It is our opinion that the proposed variances described in the notice satisfy the four-part test set out in the Planning Act. The requested variances meet the intent of the official plan, the intent of the zoning bylaw, are minor in nature, and represent appropriate land use and development on the subject site. We respectfully request approval of these variances. You're welcome.
I just have I have one. Leroy, you go ahead.
Okay. I noticed that the site-specific bylaw for these lands dates back to 2005. So when TCHC has come through for the various phases, did they go through committee of adjustment variances, or did they go through any rezonings for those other phases?
I can speak to phases 1, 2, and 3. As required, we have brought forward variances for specific buildings on specific blocks. There have been 2 other broader, I guess, rezonings as they applied to phases 2 and 3. So phase 1 was in 2005 for the community at large. There was another one brought through in 2009, which I believe was for phase 2. And then in 2014, the phase 3 lands were rezoned by a specific bylaw passed that year.
And did you, we haven't received any report from community planning. Have you received written comments from community planning? Because for such a complex, large site, I was surprised we did not get any report to provide any information to us.
Yeah, I did speak with the planner there, and their policy is typically, I guess, a no report is tacit approval. They would only advise you if they had concerns with respect to this application. So what I can tell you is planning was aware of this matter coming before committee today and did not voice any concerns. And I've had a number of detailed discussions with the planner, specifically addressing the nature of the variances that we're requesting.
Okay. My question is about variance number 11. It's just a clarification, which I do not quite understand because it says that you are not required to provide any outdoor amenity space, but you are providing it and at the rate of, number 11, at the rate of 2 square meter per unit. Is this because you have to comply with the new zoning bylaw?
No, that's not specifically why. It's really more of a technical, I guess, amendment. Under the green roof bylaw, you are allowed to remove from the roof area calculation any area that's devoted to required outdoor amenity space. And required outdoor amenity space is defined as that set out in the prevailing bylaw. And because there is no requirement for outdoor amenity space, we're simply asking to reintroduce that so that we can then go through the typical calculation of providing a green roof in accordance with the green roof bylaw.
Oh, I see. That now I get more confused. But do you actually need this variance then?
Yes, we do.
You do? Okay.
We do. Yeah, and it's being applied in accordance with the requirements that would otherwise be in place under 43886, which is the prevailing bylaw. Yeah.
Okay. And the other question is variance number 4 regarding this reduced setback of the windows.
Yeah.
And you on the south side, you said that you reduced the setback of those windows by 2 meters. Is that going to affect a limiting distance that you have to comply with?
That's actually a good question. So 2 things. The rear portion of the site or the south wall backs onto a private rear lane that's going to be actually 14 meters in width. So in actual fact, we need 2 meters from our property line, but the face of the building to the south is 12 meters away. And we have already entered into a limiting distance agreement that's already registered on title addressing this.
Oh, that's good. That's what I'm, because without that, I just worry that we might, create another problem for you.
Yes, well, that's been taken care of through the limiting distance agreement.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the vast majority of the units are designed and sized to accommodate families. I believe it's well over 50% are 3, 4, and even 5-bedroom units. Given the size of the units and the design parameters that TCH likes to achieve, there are minimum size requirements that we have to adhere to. And as a result of trying to provide for as many units as possible within this building, and also trying to allow for the relocation of families to come back in accordance with their needs in terms of the number of bedrooms, 189 units was determined as the appropriate number of units that should be provided in this building. And just based on the resultant layout and the size requirements of those units, we did require the extra height in order to achieve that number. Oh, yes. Yes. Sorry for the misunderstanding. That's correct. Yes. 189 throughout the entire building. Correct.
Yeah, I've got another question on the mechanical. The mechanical is for that district heating was that something that was contemplated when the zoning bylaw for these lands was passed in 2005?
No, it was not.
And so so this happened since then that this was determined to be the place for this use, because it's substantially quite high. It's basically adding another three floors to the building.
No, that's correct. We originally made an application for site plan approval in 2016. Subsequent to that, the project was on hold probably for 1.5 to 2 years while we spoke to Regent Park Energy about their requirements to add additional capacity to the cooling and heating that they had determined was required for full build out of Regent Park, taking it right through to the end of phase 5. And I believe they required the satellite energy plant to be located ideally within a building in phase 3, because there was some concern that the full build out of phase 3 from a cooling perspective would require this satellite energy plant to be connected to the system. Yeah, there's a picture there. I see that. So just going back to the bylaw, the original bylaw only envisioned a very small mechanical penthouse, which is typical of most buildings in Regent Park. As you had indicated, it was never contemplated that there'd be another need for a satellite energy plant to be introduced.
I'll just weigh in. We're not in committee yet, but I'll just weigh in. I just wanted to just generally commend TCHC on this initiative. The rebuild that's going on in Regent Park in partnership with Daniels is quite a spectacular development. The amount of social, affordable, and RGI housing in this needed part of the city is quite remarkable. These sound to me like quite technical amendments that have been, or variances that have been cleared and discussed at length with city staff. And again, I just think it's commendable what you guys are doing at Regent Park.
I'll be
sure. I'll on the heels of that. Oh, sorry. Nimrod wants to dispute mine.
No, I didn't know. Was there anyone speaking from the public? I don't remember. I know we got some letters in opposition, but okay. So my only comment was like, and I agree with you, Larry. I just felt like that it would have been useful to us if we had a report from community planning that explained this and indicated, these changes and that it's being reviewed through site plan approval and whether they had any problems or they agreed with them, so that it gave us some better context. And I think it was a disservice to us not to have a community planning report on such an important site, important development site.
Can I weigh in? Actually, with this last kind of development, this kind of thing, the mechanical penthouse going up and down, there's some height reduce, some height increase. It's quite normal. The process is because a lot of times that we do not anticipate other needs in the building. When you have develop a building, there are more things coming up. Maybe the staff just will not say anything, and that means that they do not object with the application. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's just
support the the proposal.
I find it odd that we get some community planning reports on some really minor issues like a front yard parking pad, but on a significant site, important site, to indicate if they support this, don't they want to promote that and give us that information to help us make a decision?
Because that's easier to do. This is tougher. Okay. I'll make a motion for approval. Are there any conditions that I have to put in, or no way? I don't think so. No conditions.
Hello. Hi, I'm here. Yes, my name is Anna Weinveen, and I live at 197 Queensdale Avenue. Just a point of clarification. So the items under number 32 and 33 for both 24 and 26 Lewis Street, are they to be discussed together? I think it makes the most sense as the applications are all sort of one combined package. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, great. And here's the presentation. Okay, so as mentioned, I'm here on behalf of the owners of 24 and 26 Lewis Street with respect to 2 applications for consent and 3 applications for minor variances. The purpose of these applications is to sever the 2 existing lots to create a total of 3 lots and to construct a new townhouse on each of the lots. Next slide. Oh, great, thanks. The slide is located, oh, sorry, go previous slide, please.
The site is located on the west side of Lewis Street, north of Eastern Avenue and south of Queen Street east of Broadview. The two lots have a depth of about 41 meters and a combined width of about 15 meters. Next slide. The site contains two single-story dwellings, and it is located within the lower Don River floodplain and falls into the TRCA regulated area. The TRCA have been consulted on this application and helped to inform some design decisions. Next slide. Lewis Street runs from Queen to Eastern with a primarily low-rise residential context with a range of building heights and styles, resulting in an eclectic mixture of built form. The majority of the lots on the street are narrow with shallow front yard setbacks, resulting in a tight existing condition along the street. Next slide. This slide depicts the consent applications. You'll see the two existing lots. The dotted lines show the severance lines, and then the third map shows the three lots to be created. The lots will retain the same depth consistent with the lots to the north. The lots will have widths that are reflective of widths of lots on the block, which are typically quite narrow. In my opinion, the severances satisfy the criteria set out in Section 5124 of the Planning Act. In particular, the applications conform to the official plan, represent a suitable low-rise development consistent with the local character. The dimensions and shapes of the proposed lots are consistent with other lots on the blocks. And finally, it's in the public interest to demolish two houses within the floodplain that do not currently meet floodproofing standards and replace them with townhouses that will. Next slide. Most of the variances are the same across all three applications. No variances are required for density or overall height or front or rear yard setbacks. The first variance is related to the height of the porch. The permitted height is 1.2 meters above established grade, and we are proposing 1.56 meters. The height is derived from a geodetic datum received from the TRCA to ensure the first floor is outside of the floodplain, and any new development in the floodplain would be similarly impacted. In my opinion, this is necessary for flood safety, and the street actually does not display a consistent first floor height, so I don't believe it'll result in unacceptable built form impacts. Next slide. The next two variances are related to the condition of the front yard. The first is the location of stairs, which do not meet the setback requirements from a front or side lot line, and the second is related to soft landscaping, which is deficient in sides. So you'll see the purple areas show that there is a ground floor staircase that leads up to a front porch, and then the red is stairs that go down to a lower basement landing. This lower basement landing and exit is required for flood safety. In my opinion, these variances are consistent with the front yard character along the street, which displays limited soft landscaping and are required for flood safety. The exit stairs from the basement limits the amount of soft landscaping in the front yard. It has been incorporated where possible. And I should also note that the site expands the front yard setback from the current condition of 0.8 meters to a total of 2.78 meters and exceeds the front yard setback minimum requirements. Next slide, please. The next two variances have to do with the width of a lot and the width of a dwelling unit. The center lot, the new center lot, does not comply with the minimum lot width of 5 meters, and all three townhouses do not comply with the minimum width of a dwelling unit, which is 5 meters. But in my opinion, the width of the proposed lots and townhouse units are consistent with the lotting fabric and character along the street, resulting in a narrow townhouse form that's compatible with the neighborhood. Next slide. The next variance is related to roof peak. The roof peak provisions at the front and rear require a certain slope to the roof above a height of 9.5 meters. The proposed plans substantially meet the requirement at the front, but we were informed by the zoning examiner that because of the width of the dormers, a variance is still required. The purpose of this provision is to minimize the impact of the building height by slanting the roof back from the street, and the proposed design is based on these Scarborough Road townhouses that you see. I think the front roof design meets the intent of this provision. The planner has provided a letter imposing a condition to link the approval for this variance to the front elevations, which we agree to. At the rear, the building won't have a roof peak. This won't be easily visible from the public realm, and the townhouses fall within the maximum permitted building depth and align with the rear main walls of the neighboring buildings, which reduces the impact of the exterior main wall heights at the rear. Next slide. The last variance is for the north unit only. It's a small variance for a side yard setback, 0.8 meters proposed, 0.9 permitted. It's a difference of 10 centimeters. The existing setback for the building is 0.8 meters, same as proposed. Access to the rear will continue to be functional, and the interface with the adjacent house will be the same as existing. So in my opinion, this is very minor. Just to conclude, in my opinion, the variances meet all 4 tests outlined in section 45(1) of the Planning Act, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, it's Gareth Powell. I own the properties at 20 and 20A Lewis Street. And I have a few questions that I was just wondering if I could ask about this development. With only access. Okay, thank you. With only access to the front of the property, I was questioning how the units will be constructed. Yeah, we have an existing maintenance agreement which covers the properties and the laneway of on the south side of this development, and the agreements between 20, 20A, 22, and 22A Lewis. And originally as well, the owner of 24 provided a strip of property to widen the laneway, and he was included in the maintenance agreement and allowed to access his rear parking pad, which he otherwise would not have been able to get into. And then so one of my questions is we didn't agree ever to allow access for the proposed 24 with 2 units in. I guess it's going to be 24A and 26 as well, to use the laneway for accessing the rear for parking pad or construction purposes. So I just wanted to clarify that. And the last thing I had was that there are 2 large trees, which we have concerns about, one at the front and one that abuts the property between 24 and 22 Lewis. And I was just wondering if we could get a tree preservation plan for these 2 trees.
Hello? Hi. So it seemed like there were three concerns coming up from Mr. Powell. The first was related to construction. It is my understanding that any construction activity would take place on the property itself and access to the laneway would not be required. With respect to parking, I just want to initially state that no variances are required for parking. And we actually went through the process of reviewing this maintenance agreement with City Legal, and they confirmed that while there is currently access, while there is permitted access for someone to park there, it is actually not legal access for a future parking space to be located. So until such time as a subsequent application takes place to get a legal easement over that laneway, there shouldn't be an issue about future parking. And the plan is to not include parking at this time in the proposal. And then the third comment with respect to trees, there is a private tree located in the rear of 24 Lewis Street. And if we can take a look at one of the architectural plans, D003, just want to sort of show it on the survey if that's all right. Anyway, I can describe it. It looks to be at least a meter or perhaps 2 meters away from the proposed development. And, oh, sorry, that's the survey. If you take a look at the architectural plans. Anyway, it's outside of where the actual building will be located. But there will be, through the building permit process, the requirement for a tree declaration. And if there's any requirement to injure this tree, then that will be reviewed by urban forestry as part of the building permit application. There is also a street tree, and the same thing goes for that street tree as well. The street tree is located on city property, of course, and through the building permit process, there would be a requirement for a tree declaration, and likely in both cases, a tree preservation plan as part of the building permit process. Hi, I seem to have been unmuted maybe to answer this question. There is no requirement for parking for the proposed townhouse units. And so we have not requested a variance because there is no.
Chair, do we deal with the consent separate from the variances? If that's the case, then I don't know about my colleagues. No, then I'll take a stab at. Sorry.
Oh, no, I just say that we can do it. We should do it together with this consent and the other parts.
So I'll take a stab at this, and I'm sure someone will weigh in and correct me if I get it wrong. It's a complicated one, but I move approval of the consent to sever, and also the requested variances with the condition that planning staff have put in building according to plans. There's engineering conditions, of course, the typical ones when consents and severances happen. And there's a TRCA report that is specific to the SPA. And I heard the presenter say that this application conforms with the requirements that TRCA has put on. I don't know whether we need to make that condition or whether we're satisfied. Okay, then I'll add that. Okay, let's add that in. I think that covers everything.
Yeah, there's a forestry conditions for different parts.
Oh, you're right. For 24, it's urban forestry 1 and 2, I think.
Yes.
And for 26, urban forestry 3.
Yes.
I thought it was related to the consent.
Yeah.
I thought the engineering was just for the consent, but
The flood control is by the TLCA's requirement. Yeah, it's already covered that.
Okay, I think that covers the waterfront.
I was looking that. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Henriques, and I'm the applicant for this application. Basically, we are proposing to sever the lot, construct two-story detached single-family dwellings. This street does run north of Gerrard. We are the first property on the west side north of Gerrard. South of us is a 5-story building that faces Gerrard. North of us on the west side, it's mainly bungalows, but across the street on the east side, it's mainly 3-story triplexes. So proposing the two stories kind of fits right in the average of the mix in this street. I actually did get 17 letters of support, which I submitted to the committee. Unfortunately, I received them after the due date and the committee couldn't put it in the file. Regarding the letter of objection, which is from number 20, if you read it, it's not really a letter of objection. He is actually in favor of our proposal. He's against the way variance number 2 is written, and it's kind of tricky because we're proposing 1.25 times the lot in floor space index, but in reality we're only proposing 0.9. The reason why it's 1.25 is just the way the grade slopes to the front. And because it's lower at the front, the basement is included. Had the grade been reversed and sloped to the back, then they would have only counted the 0.9, which is the first and second floor, and the house would still be the same size, and the same amount of wall would be above grade. So it's kind of a technicality, and the planning department doesn't have issue with that. They understand that the problem is sometimes the neighbors don't understand why the house looks so small and the numbers are so high. No, just the fact that the owner himself has spoken to pretty well almost all the neighbors, and there were no neighbors that were are not in support of this application.
Hello. Hello. Hi. It's Michael Ufford joining you. I am at 20 Glenside Avenue. I'm the person that the applicant referred to. I had a long speech, but I know it's getting late, so I'll try to cut it back. I think the applicant stated it right, but there is some confusion about this because ordinarily we hear from the buildings department as to what counts as density and what doesn't count as density. And I've talked to the technician about this, and there has been no further clarification for the from buildings department. If you look at the drawings, it's clear to me that the basement is below grade and would not be counted. Especially, I think if you look at the front elevation, it shows that best. Yes, but even at the front, the basement is below grade. The garage is at grade. The garage is at grade, but the basement is below grade. Sorry. Okay, and I have one question, if he could also respond to it. The number 1.26 is way out of line with what the neighborhood is. And I'm wondering if you grant the variance for the building, is it possible for you to prevent issues like one Oriole Road this afternoon and other problems? Can you tie the variance to the generally in accordance with the plans that are submitted? Okay, great. That's what I would request that then. But I'd like some, if I could, some clarification. Actually, if you look at the basement plan, it's you can see that you go into the garage and you have to go down into the basement. So it's clear that the basement is below grade, even at the front of the house. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me? Yes, my name is Judy So. I'm speaking on behalf of my father, Jack Kao So, and my grandmother, Cho Yen Young. We reside on 21 Glenside, which is directly across from 14 Glenside, and we've been living here for over 40 years. I also want to touch on the note by the agent where he said they've consulted pretty much everybody on the street, and we actually did not know about this development until we received the letters in the mail in late October. And so we are responding to this. We object the proposed application to split the property to construct 2 dwellings with 2 stories and basement. Our main concerns, firstly, is the continuity of the street. The proposed application is detrimental to the streetscape. The neighboring houses to 14 Glenside are 1-story with basement, front lawn, and adjacent driveway. The proposed plan is for 2-story buildings with basement and front driveway, which eliminates the current aesthetics of bungalows with front green lawns. The next concern impacts our view and privacy. We will be directly across 2 dense, bulky buildings as opposed to the current single dwelling with natural open green lawn and gardening space. This effectively eliminates the degree of spaciousness, and it is inconsistent and incompatible with the rest of the street. The privacy concerns arise from visual discomfort and intrusion of having now 2 2-story buildings with parallel windows to view into our home. Furthermore, the proposed plan will double the density. This will push street parking to capacity. Not all households own just 1 vehicle. Glenside already has limited spots available with adjacent residents parking here, especially in the winter. Residents and visitors of Redwood Avenue to the west, Highfield Road to the east, and to the south, Gerard Street East, which is a busy main street, are known to park on Glenside, especially at our end of the street. This application will only further increase traffic and safety concerns. With the 2 driveways, one for each dwelling, this will increase vehicular traffic on the sidewalk to access the driveways. The adjacent laneway on the south side of the property already has high vehicular as well as pedestrian traffic. This is a major safety concern for pedestrians who use the sidewalk in front of the proposed dwellings and pedestrians and vehicles that use the laneway. The increase in density will also heighten concerns on already existing water table and drainage issues. The location of 14 Glenside, as well as our home, is located downhill. Whether going north, south, east, or west, the location is downhill. Essentially can be described as located at the bottom of a valley or pit, which makes our houses prone to flooding. To the south side, our properties are neighboring large, densely populated apartment buildings. This is already a strain. By constructing 2 dwellings and associated driveways, this eliminates the existing back and front lawn, gardening space, and thick shrub fence, which aids water absorption. This shortcoming is especially evident in the plans for Part 2. The proposed plan will cause an unnecessary strain to the drainage system. Throughout the year, we do our civic duty to maintain lawn care, clear drains from falling leaves, snow, freeze, and thaw. Will these new residents do the same? Since the acquisition of this property back in 2018 by the new owners, we've noticed there has been little to none of such upkeep. Our final concern is about the presented floor plan. The basement has its own entrance and amenities, bathroom, laundry room, as well as the top floor. Our main concern is the potential for one dwelling to become 2 rental spaces or short-term accommodations. If this is the case, the 2 proposed dwellings will become 4 units, and this adds to the increased density and parking concerns. In closing, we question the necessity to divide the existing property into 2 properties. The variances in discussion are not minor. Major concerns arise from this proposal. Therefore, we oppose this application. Thank you very much.
Yes. Basically, first of all, I'd like to mention about the height of the buildings. I mean, the height, 2 stories are permitted. We're right next to a 5-story building. In terms of every item that she's concerned about, we actually meet the bylaws. Green space, we actually do meet the, there's no variance for green space. We actually comply. In terms of parking, I mean, we could build a larger house and still have just the 1 parking. We do meet the parking requirement. And again, driveways are permitted as well. In terms of basement, I don't see how we could put a basement unit there. The laundry that exists there, that's the only laundry in the house. We don't have another laundry. That basement is clearly just for the garage and some storage at the back. And it's got a walkout at the back just mainly for bringing in things from the backyard in and out. So there's no indication here that this would be a rental unit. In fact, on this property, there's 2 owners. And on these 2 properties, the intention here is that each owner will take one of the houses and live there. So it's not an intention to sell it and rent it out and create more units. That's not the case here. 2 stories are permitted, and there are a few 2-story houses on this street just north. I think it's like around number 50 or 50 something. There's a few houses very similar to this one as well. So I don't see how this would have impact on any neighbors. Yes. Yes, the floor space index under this new bylaw, the way the examiners now determine if the basement is counted or not is they take the average of the front and the front only, and the larger, if there is a bigger difference from the finished first floor to the grade than there is from the grade to the finished basement, then that triggers it. And you can see on my plans that the basement does go below, but it's only 3 feet below, yet the finished floor is 3 feet 10 above the established grade. So in this case, they would count the basement as floor index. For them not to count, I would actually have to create less space from the established grade to the finished floor. And that's just under the new bylaw. This didn't exist under the old bylaw.
I've got a question just to clarify with the applicant that the proposed 2 lots comply with the zoning lot size requirements.
Yes, there's no variance for that. So we technically, I guess, I'm assuming we have the right to sever it because it complies, but I mean, I guess it's still the city's decision, but we do comply with the bylaws.
Yeah, are we in committee now? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, if there aren't any questions, I would just like to say focus on the variances, only 2 for each property, and he's already explained why the FSI is so high, and cumulatively these are very minor, and I'm ready to move for approval. But just to make sure that one of the opponents worry about the FSI high index, I would like to tie the approval with the plans submitted. And for the first part, they have to comply with the engineer's requirement. And for part 1, 34C, the urban forestry condition 2 and 3. Anything else? I think that's it.
I think there was urban forestry as well for 34B.
Oh, okay.
And also there was, I think, conditions from community planning about limiting the driveway width to 2.59.
Oh, I didn't have that. No, I didn't have that much. Like come later, right? I didn't have that. Okay, that should be included. Yeah. Oh, I think the FSI is calculated. I think it should be at least the basement and the ground floor plans, right?
I'm wondering maybe it should be the same.
Okay, yeah, okay, awesome. Yeah, that's what I'm initial. Yeah, otherwise it's yeah, confusing. Yeah.
Thank you and have a good evening.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.